Now, when it comes to having a voice, the principle of natural justice has been used to argue that these changes should be given another consultation process. Now, natural justice is a valuable principle, but it doesn't necessarily apply to every decision that is made. In common law, and I'm a law student myself, it applies to decisions that adversely affect an individual. It's less likely to apply to routine administration or policy making, or to decisions that can give a benefit. Now, these changes are not targeted at an individual. They are for all Aucklanders and those who one day may live in Auckland.
Alex, you're just going to finish.
Yeah, I'll just finish off here.
Good man.
And the impacts of the zoning change are not objectively negative. Many feel, including us, that they can be positive. And the changes are simply to put forward to the recommendations submitted in the hearings process. The decision is not being made now. And so we feel that removing these changes would be giving greater weight to the voice of a few at the expense of all Aucklanders who are affected by the housing crisis and at the expense of future generations.
Well said.
Okay, that's very good. Are there any questions to Flora or Scott? Or Alex, rather. Linda,
Well done,
Councillor
Flora.
Linda.
Thank you. Very courageous of you. Can I just ask, you've got 21 members of your youth advisory panel, and each person represents one local board, which is every local board across the region. When you asked whether you could represent their views, was it unanimous that you were to do that? Could you just speak up so people can hear you?
Yes, it was unanimous.
Very much.
We had full support of the panel, and they expressed some of their own concerns about the housing crisis that they face and that their own communities face.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, Councillor Cooper, the I Am Auckland plan, which was launched in 2014, was a plan that was created by council and also young people, part of the youth advisory panel too. But that plan was based on the voices of over 6,000 children and young people that we consulted with and asked them, what are your aspirations for Auckland? Do you want to live here in the future? Most of them said yes, but change needs to happen. And that's what we're here to talk about today.
Well done,
Thank you.
Flora.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Flora and Alex. Good submission. Thank you. Right, next is Scott Figgenshaw. Scott, welcome. Representing Community Housing Aotearoa.
Hello, my apologies that Scott Figgenshaw was unable to make it today, but I am here to represent the Community Housing for Auckland and Community Housing Aotearoa. My name is Peter Jeffries. There's 4 points that we really just want to make today. One is who we represent, and we suggest that that is the community housing sector in Auckland, which is a major sector in delivering affordable housing and understanding that issue. We also believe that we represent a group that, along with the youth that isn't here today, are those that rent, and that would be 50% of Aucklanders who live in rental accommodation in Auckland. The second point that we want to make is just we believe that the critical issue is about affordability for the city. We understand from the reports that we made that Auckland is now the 4th least affordable city in the world, and that has serious consequences, and I want to be able to reflect some of those consequences to you and to this audience, because I think it's very important about where the future of this city is going and what it's going to mean if we do not meet that target of making our city more affordable. The third point I want to cover is the fact about 3-storey housing. And we believe we're directly involved in the building and delivery of affordable housing. And I'm here to tell you that 3-storey housing, delivery of low-rise 3-storey, is critical to affordability for this city. And if you're going to restrict that to such small areas of 15%, which is mixed housing, urban, and terrace and high-rise, we've got a major problem, because we're just not going to be able to deliver enough of it. So 3-level housing is critical to this city and its future. And the fourth point I just want to come back to is that the bite of this, the bite of the unitary plan and what's happening isn't about home ownership. And hey, that is critical, and we We grieve for our younger families and our children that can't get onto this property market. But the real bite is what it's going to do to the rentals and what it's going to do to the 50% of this city that rent. Because I can tell you, because I've been following and we're directly involved in the provision of affordable rental accommodation, that rents are about to go up. And they're going up significantly. In the last 2 years, last year we saw it go up 6.6. The year before it was 4%. The year before that was 4%. We've had around 15%. But in the next few years, for the investment, for investors to come back into this market and provide the rental accommodation that we so desperately need because it's now so unaffordable, those prices have to go up by 25%. So I want 25% or more. So I want you to go out there and talk to those 50% of our city that we're now talking about rental prices going up. And so for the people, I feel for the homeowners that are behind me. I am a homeowner, and we grieve about the changes that are happening to the city. But please start to explain to the population that are renting and finding it already unaffordable that they're the ones that are really going to be paying for the changes that are happening in the city. When you go out and look at the papers now and the articles there and all the ads for apartments and what have you and what the market is delivering, for rental accommodation, just start dividing the price by the livable areas and you'll soon see that you're paying, the market is now saying that per square metre of accommodation is around $9,000 to $10,000 per square metre. That's what the market's delivering. And one of the key costs involved in that, and I've watched it as we've delivered 1 and 2 bedroom units in the last 4 years ago at $230,000 and they went up to $270,000. I can't now build, and I'm a not-for-profit charitable trust, I can't build a 1 bedroom flat now for under $310,000. And the next prices that are coming in are around $350,000. Now just start thinking about the elderly and the young and the people that are coming into this city that needs to live there. And what you guys are saying by debating whether we've followed a due process or not, you're wanting to make that harder and you're wanting to put those costs up. Because as you restrict where development can happen in the city, you're just creating another tighter monopoly where we're going to have more land bankers coming in, more speculation, because you're saying that the growth of the city is now being defined to 15, and what we're hoping is that you'll increase that, and what this amendment is about is allowing and supporting further land and availability for 3-storey and affordable housing.
Thank you, Peter.
Well said.
Okay, are there any questions of Peter? Councillor Penny W.
Thank you very much. As someone that's got 3 children and 8 grandchildren living in Auckland, the others unfortunately can't afford to, and in renting I know the issues that you're talking about. Can you also comment on the fact that we've got people now saying we need to be building further out? Could you maybe make a comment about people who live, young families who live further out, and the costs of them trying to get to work? Because those are considerable.
Hey, you're right. There's a whole new cost that you introduce when you move families way out of town, and one only has to sit in the traffic these days to understand what that does to families and the amount of time. The community housing sector supports where the council are right at, that we've got to go a little bit out, but we certainly got to go a lot up. And if you're just going to move all our young families and make affordable housing only on the outsides of the city, hey, we've got major problems again.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Bill.
Peter, when you've done your matrices about the economic ability to develop brownfields, like existing urban zones as compared to greenfields, which stacks up as the most affordable, giving the same design in square meterage?
We're certainly we're involved in doing greenfield out at Weymouth, where we're building 290 houses out there. It all comes down to the design and what you're actually going to allow us to sort of build. And we can certainly build more affordable units if you allow us that ability to build up to 3 levels. And in going to that 3rd level, we dramatically reduce the cost of it. And so, I don't think the debate is about going out further. one or the other, but you've got to allow the society to sort of change and allow that intensification to happen in all the suburbs. And we're not going to be able to deliver it if you just confine us to the city sort of centres, because, hey, that's always going to be more desirable. You've got to allow this low-rise intensification to happen across the whole
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Peter. Appreciate your submission. Thank you. Right, next is Richard Burton and the Auckland 2040, accompanied by Guy Haddleton and Ken Palmer.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask for some documents to be distributed, please?
Yeah, sure. Richard, have we got Guy?
I think he's in the audience. If he could come up, please.
Oh, he's certainly welcome to. Gentlemen, 5 minutes. Good to see you, Ken.
Thank you very much. Has everybody got a copy of the presentation? Thank you. This meeting has nothing to do with the merits of intensification or the number of stories or the ability to build affordable housing. It is entirely to do with the lack of a democratic process allowing public participation in the out-of-scope zoning of 25, and that we know it's just under 30,000, properties across Auckland suburbs. A fundamental principle of the unitary plan preparation and assessment is that it is a participatory process. This is reinforced by Judge Kirkpatrick, the head of the IHP. He says there are two fundamental principles, only one is relevant. The court cannot permit a planning instrument to be appreciably amended without real opportunity for participation by those potentially affected. Instead of that, the process that Council has adopted for out-of-scope changes provides no opportunity for participation, no ability to lodge submissions, and no right to present evidence at a hearing. I ask councillors to answer the following question as residents in Auckland, not as councillors. If Council proposed to rezone the street you live in to allow buildings of a completely different form, would you expect to be notified by Council, and would you expect a right of submission and hearing? How can you answer with any other answer but yes? The Council's role at this stage is to produce evidence reflecting its position on the submissions lodged. Its role is not to identify all the other potential areas it would now like to have zoned and then ask the IHP to approve them under the out-of-scope powers. Future intensification plans, if required, can be introduced by variational plan change if and when required. There is no urgency. Suggestions that Council should let the IHP handle the out-of-scope changes would leave the IHP in the position of having evidence from Council proposing the zone changes, but no evidence from any other party. Now, there are several misunderstandings of procedural process. I have the privilege of having with me Professor Palmer, New Zealand's foremost legal expert on resource management, local government and environmental law. He has supplied advice to Auckland 2040 on the legal and procedural matters that have been raised by Council in various documents. His advice has been circulated to Council, it's actually attached to this statement. Now, there are a number of issues. The first, whether councillors voting to withdraw out-of-scope zoning changes will prejudice their ability to participate in later decision-making following the making of recommendations by the IHP to Council. His answer is no. whether the governing body of the full council can override or reverse decisions of the Unitary Plan Committee or Auckland Development Committee, his answer is yes. Whether council can withdraw all or part of its evidence, and I'd ask you to also regard the evidence from Phil Reid from the hearings panel, his answer is yes, as is Phil Reid's. The council's proposal to change the zoning of 30,000 plus households is out of scope, is contrary to the established unitary plan process, and should have been done either by variation or alternatively by plan change after the plan has been made operative. Again, his answer is yes. Professor Palmer further states that should council proceed with the out-of-scope changes and an appeal to the Environment Court results, that appeal would prevent the PAUP from becoming operative until all appeals are determined. This could significantly delay the making operative of the plan. This is not about the merits of intensification. This is about council's abuse of the consultative process by proposing tens of thousands of out-of-scope zoning changes.